Rock Mills, no sign saying so. But what a past it has. Before Anderson was a county, and before we were a country, the Cherokee lived here, along the Genrestee Creek. A map of the 13 British colonies shows the Genrestee. In 1777, the Cherokee lost the land to the new country of America, and by 1820, cotton was everywhere, and the area between Rock Mills and what would become McCormick County was producing more cotton than anywhere in America. One of the first property owners in Rock Mills was David Humphreys, a preacher at Roberts Presbyterian and owner of hundreds of acres, and as many as 3 dozen enslaved people. His property fell along the Genesee Creek. The name comes from 2 Cherokee words, pronounced Agena Osdi. English language would have it as Little Cedar. The area finally got a name when Samuel Maverick and Major Lewis got hundreds of acres and built a grist mill and a lumber mill out of rock, the Rock Mills, along the Genesee. There was a post office. Mr. Humphreys was the postmaster. Eventually, there was a furniture factory, spindle mill, distilleries, shoemakers, several wagon makers, a number of stores, a school, and churches. In an 1885 newspaper story, James McLeese gave this description.
How did things go on at Rock Mills? I can tell you and make no mistake about it. Occasionally you might see a few older men a little tight, once in a while drunk. Sometimes a little fist and skull fight, but no harm done. Such a thing as a young man getting drunk was seldom known.
Samuel Maverick owned a thriving plantation near Pendleton. Maverick family lore says he shipped the first cotton from the United States to Europe. His widowed mother married Robert Anderson, a settler in the area and namesake of the county. Samuel Maverick later married Robert Anderson's daughter, technically his stepsister. Eventually, a widowed David Humphreys married Mary Hunter, the granddaughter of Robert Anderson. Mary's grandmother was now married to Mr. Maverick. I guess in the day, your social circle just wasn't that wide. Down the wagon road from Rock Mills, Samuel Earl, a Revolutionary War veteran and retired congressman, owned a nearby plantation of 3,000 acres. His wife was a Harrison, said to be related to 2 presidents. The Earls lived close to what would become Genesee Baptist Church. Within sight of their plantation stood Shiloh Church, complete with a balcony made especially for the enslaved to attend church. The original grants on which the town of Anderson was built were made to William Turpin, Maverick's uncle. Turpin wrote to Thomas Jefferson and James Madison urging an end to slavery. Between Turpin and Turpin's partner, Thomas Wadsworth, the concept of 40 acres and a mule is said to have originated. The Mavericks were not like-minded. Samuel Maverick had around 3 dozen slaves. His son, Samuel Augustus Maverick, born and raised in Pendleton, was offered a plantation and slaves if he would stay.
No, Daddy, but I will take me some slaves, and I'm gonna seek my fortune out west.
So, the younger Maverick goes to Texas, which was then part of Mexico. He would have died at the Alamo, but left by horseback to sign the Texas Declaration of Independence. Days later, Davy Crockett and hundreds of others lost their lives there. Maverick later became mayor of San Antonio. At one point, he owned 300,000 acres of land and was said to have been the largest landholder in Texas. I know you've heard about somebody being a maverick. Well, I've got a story for you. The young Samuel Augustus Maverick refused to brand his cattle. As a result, the word maverick, slang for someone who exhibits a streak of stubborn independence, entered the English language. According to this dictionary clipping from Harvard Library, unbranded cattle in the region were presumed to be mavericks. Maury Maverick, the great-grandson of the Pendleton Maverick, was elected to Congress from Texas. He was the only Texas Democrat to support the 1937 anti-lynching bill. Like his granddaddy, the Texas Maverick, he became mayor of San Antonio and is said to have coined the word gobbledygook. The great great-grandson of the Pendleton Maverick, Maury Maverick Jr., was elected to the Texas House of Representatives as a Democrat. A committed liberal, he became well known during his term in office as a supporter of organized labor and civil rights for African Americans. Now see if you can follow all this. Lydia Maverick, the sister of Samuel who moved to Texas, ended up inheriting Daddy's land in Rock Mills. She married William Van Wyck and moved off to New York. Their children include Augustus Van Wyck, who became a Supreme Court justice in New York and a Democratic candidate for governor in 1898, losing to Teddy Roosevelt. Robert Anderson Van Wyck was the first mayor of New York City. The Van Wyck Expressway was named for him. The family owned land in Rock Mills into the 1900s. Lydia's daughter married Confederate Major General Robert Hoke. Fort Bragg Military Base is in Hoke County, North Carolina. The county is named after him. One of the Hoke's children was an orthopedic consultant in the development of Shriners Children's Hospitals. Daddy Maverick's resting place is on a hill outside of Pendleton. The Maverick home, Montpelier, still stands not far away. Shortly after the Civil War, David Humphreys died, leaving land for religious training and education of the colored people and the founding of Mount Sinai Church. In the city of Anderson stands a Confederate monument. It is said the man on top was made in the likeness of his son, W. W. Humphreys, a Confederate officer who carried out his father's dying directive. Census records indicate there were as many as 3,000 enslaved people just in the Rock Mills area. Many of those buried in nearby church cemeteries spent their earlier life in bondage. The Mount Sinai Cemetery has more than 500 graves. Over half are unmarked and may hold the remains of the formerly enslaved. A number of the folks in nearby cemeteries were leaders in singing conventions, like Sebron Stowers. By the way, he is the grandfather of Freddie Stowers, the first black man to be awarded the Medal of Honor in World War I, which his family belatedly accepted from President Bush in 1991. Maybe you've heard of Milli Vanilli. One of the vocalists for the group was John Davis. His ancestors are buried in the cemetery too. John's family had a long history in shape note music. Going back to the 1800s, the whole area had shape note singing conventions. You'd see children arriving in hay wagons. Through the years, tables overflowed for dinner on the grounds. Then there was the singing. Generosity Baptist, Mount Olive, Deep Creek, New Harmony, Rock Hill, Mount Hermon, King David, Mountain View, Crossroads, Mount Pleasant, Evergreen, and Mount Moriah participated. With time, Old Rock Mills Township just faded away. US 29 no longer runs in front of Mount Sinai Church. In the 1930s, they moved it over, and the old roadway was renamed George Merck Road. 200 years later, though, the water still flows over the dam off Broadwell Mill Road, named for a later owner of the mill. A long story made short. The family of Robert Anderson, the namesake of the county, was related to the Mavericks and the Humphreys. Without them, Rock Mills would never have existed, but their success occurred on the backs of thousands. The same people who founded churches, which gave rise to singing conventions, which lasted over 125 years. And we salute those who took part. One last thing, you'll find Thomas Jefferson and his family buried at Mount Sinai. No, not that Thomas Jefferson. He's an enslaved man who worked on the Earls' plantation. If you go on the internet and type in Thomas Jefferson slave narrative Anderson SC, you'll have some interesting reading. He died in the 1940s at 106 years old. He's related to some of the Jeffersons and Humphreys in the Rock Mills area. Okay, I'll go now.